Chrysler would make an all-new, outside-the-box approach on what they would call an automobile. First American car to be built with a wind tunnel testing. First car built of unit body constructed in the States. A car that can roll down a cliff and still get in and drive it away. Do that in your new car. The car that looks like a toaster, the Chrysler Airflow. But before getting into all of it, I'm your host, Jay. Welcome to What It's Like, the automotive channel that shows you how cool cars used to be when cars had real buttons and mechanical gauges, when driving the car was the adventure, not an inconvenience. We dive in deep with history, specs, design, engine episodes sprinkled in. If any of that sounds of interest to you, a channel that you will totally dig, subscribe and hit the bell icon next to it so you never miss a video. 1936 Chrysler model lineup. But before getting into all of that, let's talk about let's talk about the Airflow in general. This was what Chrysler looked like in 1933, and this is the jump that Chrysler took in 1934. The Airflow looked like nothing. They were trying to do something that nobody else was doing at the time, and they succeeded. The Airflow concept was offered in more than just Chrysler. DeSoto would offer an Airflow for 2 years, 1934 through 1936. Chrysler would offer the Airflow from 1934, 35, 36, and 37. The only company to offer the Airflow for 4 years was Chrysler. Imperial offered the Airflow from 1934 through 1936. 1936 Chrysler model lineup. Airstream series could be had in either 6 or 8. Airflow series C9. And then there was 3 Imperial series of the Airflow, the C10, C11, and CW. I don't know who needs to hear this, but Chrysler was an engineering company. They're far cry from what they are now. Chrysler was one of the first companies, one of the first commoner companies, like for the common folk, to offer hydraulic brakes as standard equipment. They designed a special rim that when it deflates, the rim catches the tire so it doesn't fall off and you crash. The Airflow was to be their next big thing. The Airflow, though revolutionary in design, the buying public wasn't all that impressed with the looks. I personally totally dig the way that these look. I think they look like Art Deco toasters, which I totally dig. This car is like the 1930s Edsel of cars. And because Chrysler didn't dive headfirst, blindfolded into the deep end, they were able to see that the traditional styled cars that Chrysler still offered with the 6 outsold the Airflow and the 8-cylinder cars, mind you, 2.5 to 1 in 1934. Airflow's body was originally designed by Dr. Alexander Clayman. The body, sheet metal, would be constructed around a network of steel wires, almost like a bird cage, which made the body surprisingly strong. Chrysler claims this to be the first unit body car in America, meaning the body and the frame were one unit. They would test the durability by driving off a cliff. Am I the only one wondering, what would a new car look like if they rolled it off a cliff? Chrysler would take the Airflow to Utah, out there at the Salt Flats, running the flying mile, 95.7 miles per hour, averaging 90 miles per hour for 500 miles, and also they drove 24 miles at an average speed of 84.43 miles per hour. 1936 did see a bit of a facelift slash redesign, so let's compare. 35 on top, 36 on the bottom, starting in the front. These two, let's just pretend that these have the same wheelbase. You can see that the car on the bottom is slightly longer in the wheelbase than the car on top. Upon further examination, it turns out that the smaller wheelbase car is actually the 1935 DeSoto Airflow, but just take a look at how different the wheelbase configuration makes the car profile overall shape to be. The DeSoto almost looks too small. Anyway, 35 Chrysler Airflow on top, 36 Chrysler Airflow on the bottom, starting in the front. The grills are completely different, as well as headlights, bumpers have also been revised. Louvers on the side of the hood also revised. Both have split windshields with windshield wipers on the top, so you could open the windshield to allow the air to circulate and flow through the cabin. Airflow. I don't know. Anyway, moving to the side profile. Did you ever notice that at this angle, how similar this looks to a Volkswagen Beetle? Can't unsee it. Moving aft, the top image is flipped, so you'll be able to see these cars better at the same angle. The gas fillers are on the same side. Both have split rear back glass. Tail lights and shape, as well as placement, have changed, going from bumper to fender on the 36. Both have external trunk handles, but the hinges are done different. The 36 has external trunk hinges where the 35 doesn't. 36, the biggest change is this full steel top versus the 35 has a hole in the center of the roof with rubber and chicken wire that is inside of it. Jumping inside to take a quick look at dash and interior situation. Both are different. Which one do you like better? Let's talk specs. 206.6 inches long. It rides a wheelbase of 123 inches. It weighs around 3,200 pounds. Price, $1,375, which would be equivalent to you spending $31,208.84 in the year 2025. Total 1936 Chrysler was 71,295 units, and this is a real tearjerker. Only 1,700 of those were Airflows. The rest of them were the Airstream series. Ouch. Of the 1,700 Airflows that were produced for 1936, only 110 of them were two-door coupe variety. There's said to be 55,000 Airflows built over the course of 4 years between all three makes. So DeSoto, Chrysler, and Chrysler Imperial. Moving on to engine. Only one engine on offer for the C10, and that is the 273 cubic inch displacement inline 8, 4.5 liters. It was good for 110 horsepower at 3,400 RPM, 206 pound-feet, or 279 newton meters at 1,200 RPM, with a bore of 3.3 inches and a stroke of 4.1 inches, compression of 7-to-1, 5 main bearings. Upon further examination, I found that you could also get the 323, oftentimes referred to as the 324, cubic inch displacement, flathead 8, 5.2 liters. It was good for 115 to 120 horsepower, 3,400 RPM, 250 pound-feet, or 338 newton meters at 1,200 RPM, with a bore of 3.25 inches and a stroke of 4.875 inches. 5 main bearings. And honestly, that is the hardest thing about doing these not engine episodes, but these episodes in general, is everybody will say that there's something else in the engine bay. And it's not making excuses, just being transparent. Chrysler offered 5 straight 8s during this era. Most of them were reserved for the Imperial series. Let's talk styling on this revolutionary car, starting with the louvers on the side. Just look at all of the intricate detail found in that louver profile. Coming down towards the fenders, there are beads that run the perimeter of the fenders. Absolutely beautiful artillery wheels, body color with pinstriping and red accent color that works well. Coming around the front, the fenders flow with the hood profile. Bumper is very elegant, smooth profile. 3 black channels inside, or lines inside there. There's 2 overrider bars pointing down. Headlights protrude outward on the bodywork. This might be the very first car to have the headlights in the bodywork like that. In the comment section, does anything predate the Airflow? Headlights at the top, running lights just below it, but notice that there is a grille that goes around the running lights. Very interesting design choice. Waterfall style grille that sort of looks like a gilded birdcage at some angles. Chrysler wings mascot. Notice all of the detail on the underside of the wings. This car is a very curvaceous car. This running boards flow so nicely on the Airflow with bright beads that cascade down the running board, alternating between bright and black going aft. This car has 2 cowl vents for driver and for passenger. Windshield wipers are at the top of the windshield, so the windshield can be opened. The windshield trim is beveled Both pieces of glass are set at angles, so it comes to a center point, which flows into the roof profile. Beltline bright work and pinstriping, which leads your eyes to the rear where everything just comes nicely together. Fender skirts, gas filler. I love how the rear fenders have the same profile as the rear body work. Split window, external trunk hinges. So smooth this car is. There are aprons that usually cover the bumper brackets, but for whatever reason on this car, they are underneath. The headlights, or not the headlights, but the brake lights have grills. Almost looks like spider webs on them. It's really cool, interesting design aspect. Let's just check out all of the textures in this door panel. Armrest, door handle to pull the door shut, door handle to get out, window crank for the big window, which operates like that. Has a vent window connected to it. Coming down inside the pedal box down here, high beam switch, clutch, brake, gas pedal. Just take a look at this interior. Here is what over the hood would look like. Here's what first person over the hood would look like. On to the button switches and knobs. Window crank for the driver's side windshield. Then just below that is the overdrive. Pull it out to engage overdrive. 120 mile per hour speedometer, and then inside of that is another gauge, 55 RPM tach. And then there's more numbers inside of that signify, I'm not entirely sure what. If you know, in the comment section below. Starter button, key, plate where the radio would go. At the bottom is the ashtray, which they took out of the cars at the auction so nobody would steal them. Panel lights. Next square binnacle houses 5 gauges, coolant temperature, oil pressure, gasoline gauge, amp meter with clock in center, window crank for the passenger side windshield, lighter. Up above there are sun visors. There's a sun visor there, as well as a sun visor over there for the passenger. Rear view mirror in center. Taking a real quick gander under the hood, it's tight and narrow, and it's still, everything has good accessibility. 2-barrel downdraft carburetor, oil bath air cleaner that hangs off the driver's side. The distributor is set at an angle located about halfway in the center on the driver's side. Notice the inner fenders with the vents. On the positive side, depending on the body style, these are still affordable. Looks like nothing else on the road. With that tube chassis, it has like a built-in roll cage essentially, making it pretty safe. You saw the car roll over and drive away. Not many cars have that feature. Great dash, full instrumentation, 2 glove boxes against it. Love it or hate it styling. This car was the first time Chrysler ever failed. Up until this point, everything that Walter P. touched turned to gold except this car. And they had other issues, like the engines like to just fall out of them. But by 1936, that problem was mostly fixed. Okay, on to Would You Rather. Couple different scenarios today. These aren't fair, but which one would you rather have? 1936 Packard 120 or 1936 Chrysler Airflow or 1935 Hupmobile Aero Coupe? I'm going to leave this here for a minute. If you need more time, feel free, pause the video. Okay. On to the second scenario. 1935 Hudson 8 or 1936 Chrysler Airflow or 1936 Cadillac V8. Once again, going to leave this here for a minute. If you need more time, feel free, pause the video. On to the final scenario. If you had the choice back in 1936 and you were going to buy one of these two cars, you were going to buy a car from Chrysler with an 8-cylinder, which one would you rather have? 1936 Chrysler Airflow or 1936 Chrysler Airstream? Once again, going to leave this here for a minute. Need more time, feel free, pause the video. On to Name That Tune. First person to get both the name of the band and the song title correctly in the comment section will have their comment pinned to the top of it. Thank you all so much for coming out and watching this. If you'd like to get in touch with me, shoot me a comment in the comment section below or send me an email at what_its_like@yahoo.com. Thanks again for everything that you guys bring in the comment section. What cars would you like to see this year on What It's Like in the comment section as well? Until next time, toodaloo! Welcome to the after show. See this car like you've never saw it before. This part of the video doesn't usually have commentary or sound, but I'm going to put some ragtime music to this one. Enjoy. It's future me after uploading, and the music didn't appease the YouTube gods for whatever reason, and it really pisses me off because other channels are able to do that, but I can't for whatever reason. I could go on and on and on about it, but I'm sure you guys don't want to hear it. Just enjoy the car. I'm sorry, there's no music.